Hello there, Unlearner. Welcome to this episode of the UnLearners podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and for taking a slice and a chunk out of your day to be present to this conversation, which is actually going to be really, really good. Now, you can probably see that the environment we're in is not the one you experienced in season 1, and that is because we are shooting live from our retreat, our annual retreat that's called the UnLearning Experience. So if you haven't had an opportunity to join us for our retreat yet, please make sure you go over to theunlearners.com and make sure you sign up to join us in 2024 or whenever it is that you are watching this podcast.
The UnLearners. Learn, change, grow. Learn, change, grow. The UnLearners. The UnLearners. Learn, change, grow.
All right, so we're going to come right back to the conversation today and make sure that we dive really deep into this topic, because this is probably one of my favorite things to talk about. And we've had the conversations we recorded as part of this retreat that are airing in season 1 have been so juicy. And our studio audience, which is attending the retreat, has enjoyed it thoroughly, but also I've enjoyed having the conversations because they're so relevant to what this podcast is about, relearning, rethinking some of the topics we think that we know, and taking on this space of conscious incompetence to say, I know that I don't know everything. So how do I fill in those gaps, but also how do I start to question? And that's what today's conversation is about. And so I'm so excited to bring you someone that I deeply respect and admire. I think I found you online, actually, when I found you. So my guest today is none other than psychic medium Heike Sim. Heike, it's so amazing to have you. Welcome to the UnLearners podcast.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Of course. So during our time as we were preparing for this, guys, we had a few questions come in from right inside the retreat. And those questions were really around, how in the world do you even do this? And most people will say, you see dead people, as you walk around. When you see other people, are you seeing people behind them? How is it working? So maybe can you give us an idea about what a psychic medium actually is?
All right. Let's just first get into the terminology as well, because psychic really just means heightened senses, because this is how we connect to the other side. So it's like what we see, what we hear, what we feel. So it's the senses that are activated. That is what psychic means. There is a lot of smoke and everything around it, but it really just means heightened senses, and we all have them. And how far we train them is up to us. The medium part is I've trained those senses to an extent that I can connect to past loved ones. So do I see dead people? Yeah. Do I walk around doing my grocery shopping doing so? No. So, so what happens, and it's also something that is a very, very sacred thing to do. And it's something that it's comes with a lot of responsibility and with a lot of honor as well, because there is so much emotions and connections with that. So what it is, you connect with that person's energy in order to bring messages. You're the middleman, and it's not my energy, it's I am being allowed to be part of that process to connect.
Sure.
And so yes, that's what the medium part is.
Yes, that is so beautiful. And I think today's conversation, and it's titled Relearning Spirituality. That's what we've titled our conversation. And it's not to say that everyone needs to completely check out what they believe or add to what they believe, but it's just to say, how do we expand what we understand about spirituality and the role that it can play in our lives, but also the different forms that it can take, because oftentimes we do put it in a box. You shared earlier on during our time that you were a heavy, staunch Catholic, and I was very much the same. And I think that there's definitely still parts of me that honor. I love that you used the word honor earlier on. Honor the role that religion can play with helping us to build beautiful routines around worship and time alone and those types of things. But I think it's so interesting that you are going to engage us on the topic of relearning spirituality, because we get to say, as we move into the future, as we transform, what role do we want spirituality to play in our lives? So maybe let's start there. What have you found in the work that you do are some of the unlearnings that people are needing to do, or maybe even some of the mindsets and perspectives that so many of us hold about this space, about this work, and about this part of ourselves?
The thing is, it's not so much about the unlearning itself, but more the expanding, giving ourselves permission to expand.
Okay.
And yes, I'm coming from a Catholic background, and I lived my upbringing. And there was nothing wrong with it within the setup. And I was from a very small Bavarian little dorp in Germany where it's like it was normal, and it was great. But there also what I learned along the way was it came with a lot of restrictions. And you weren't encouraged to ask questions, and you weren't really allowed to take other things in, but there were lots of interesting things. So the starting point is always curiosity. So, but at the same time, what in lots of religious backgrounds, not just the Christianity, it is not encouraged, it's actually you being told that it is punishable. It is a sin, don't go there, and there is a price to pay, or you're going to be in hell, or it is blasphemy, or whatever there is. So they're literally, and I love the English phrase because I learned English as an adult, it's like to put the fear of God in you. Well, that is a bit contradictory, because this is supposed to be the entity that loves me unconditionally, but I'm supposed to fear him, her, it. So it is like, so question, and I always say your God needs to be, I learned my God needed to be what sits right with me, what comes from love. If it's not coming from love, I quite frankly don't care in which package it comes, because then it is distorted, because we need to remember that any kind of so-called world religion is run by humans. And humans are humans.
Sure.
So the base of every religion that's out there is love, it's compassion, it's connection, it's being there for each other, it's kindness. And then you had some humans distorting it.
Sure.
So this is like, be curious and allow yourself and let your heart and your soul and your gut, because it sits here energetically, be the guide to explore that. And as long as it comes from kindness and love, how wrong can it truly be?
Yeah. So I want to just latch right onto what you just said, allowing our internal selves, allowing what we already have access to be our guide. And the idea that there isn't necessarily something outside of ourselves that will play the role of maybe, whether it's an intermediary or whatever. I mean, you can get some forms of support from people, but the idea that you already have everything you need to make that connection. And I want to go from there, because most people will say, no, I understand, and you know, I want to go to church and I want to do this, and that's all fine, and people make different decisions. But I want to go into what do we do as we restart? And some people may be watching this and maybe they are religious, maybe they're not, maybe they're atheist. If someone wants to start to tap in, to say, I want to discover with curiosity, very much like what you said, I'd like you to talk to us about where we can start. What are some of the things you've seen to be effective, so that we can open up and expand and get to that place where we've got such a beautiful connection with what we've known spirit or God or entity or whatever, or love to be.
The number one thing I would say is, because normally what people then do, they buy a lot of books.
Yes.
And it's great to get some insight into that. But this whole spirituality thing cannot happen in the brain. We can get information in the brain, but you can't experience that in the brain. It's like, even with love, before we even get to spirituality, it's not like a brain thing. We feel it, we experience, we have physical reactions to it, we get goosebumps, the blood pressure goes up, all of that. You cannot, in theory, learn love if you haven't experienced it. Sure. So you cannot experience and grow in spirituality in whichever form you choose it to be if you do not do it. So what I normally say to people is, throw the books away. No, don't throw them away, but ignore them for a year and go play around with it in a safe way. Go and join like a weekend retreat on that. There is spiritual development classes where they just really go like play around with energy. There's like there is a whole weekends that you can do that with. It's like play around with your energies. There's like very simple things with it. In seconds, people go like, oh my God, I can do that. We just don't know how or where.
Is it like that thing where you put your hands apart and then you...
That's one of those, the energy balls, and
that
there's
is
something
so
called the human
cool.
pendulum as well, which is normally the people that gets them within seconds, and they're just like, oh my God, we can do it after the
Oh
recording.
yes, good.
It's like you guys gonna love it. So it is like, and the moment we get a glimpse of it, it's like, oh my God, I can do that. What else can I do?
Oh, wow.
And it's like with anything. It's like once we get that, I can, because we always think this is me and there is others.
Yes.
And I was at that point because I stumbled into all of this in my early 30s, and I used to go like to the psychic fairs, and I like, oh, I wish I could do that. It did not even occur to me that I could do that. It was them and I. It was there are special people that do that. It's not me. I go there to visit them. And then along the way, it was like, oh, hold it, what just happened? And then it clicked as the only thing that stopped me from doing it was my belief that it ain't me. There was nothing else in the way but that. And the moment I started exploring that and going for it, there was absolutely zero reason why that couldn't be me. And the beauty about it is like with all the people that I'm blessed to see and that come and see me and I get to spend, I literally have people around me from all religions, all backgrounds, all age groups, all denominations, and literally also priests, rabbis, all of that. They're human beings and they're search. And that's what we're here for.
And it's okay.
It's more than okay. That's our job to be here.
Oh my goodness.
That is what we're here for. And it's like we are all so interconnected. And I always say we are here to walk each other home. And we are not here to stop each other on our journey. So this whole kind of judgment and hate and no, mine is the right, yours is the right. We're not going to sit in the sandpit and fight over toys. Sure. It's like, let me lead you out of the sandpit and see what else is there. So it's like the moment anything is used to divide and to fight over, and the moment it has to be a right and a wrong, we're in the wrong game. So get curious, go, and there is so many, the interest is there and the sources are there. Get a group of people and get someone in, or even just do like those vision board kind of things, and they're a great fun. And it's get some cards. You don't have to get tarot cards because lots of people go like, ooh, tarot. Just get angel cards. They sound nice. It's the same thing, but they sound nice. So we don't have as much resistance to play around with it.
I love that. We actually just did a vision boarding session before we came into this podcast recording, and it was magical. We had to come over to the other side of the room, and the ladies went, no, is it over already? Because it was just that magical. It opens us up to just possibility. And I think that's such a big part of what you're saying is opening ourselves up by understanding that it's safe, because we've been taught that spirituality is a almost a zero-sum game, is, like you said, a right or wrong game. But it's not so much exploring with curiosity and discovering spirit for yourself.
Totally.
Which is absolutely phenomenal.
And it's beautifully coexisting, because it doesn't have, you have to choose the one or the other. So some people really get quite upset when I'm saying like, no, I'm a Roman Catholic psychic medium. Whoa, if you ever see blood pressure going up. Fact is I am. And nobody can change that. Them liking it or not is entirely up to their experience thereof. And that's valid, totally valid. It's just not mine. So it does not change this.
So what would you say then is the results at the end of the day? So if someone says, I'm going to take a little bit of this and a little bit of that, or none at all, what would you say then is the determinant underneath it all, in your opinion? Like, if I do take a little bit of this, if I am a Roman Catholic psychic medium, it's my tools to get to where? What's that end game that you would say? Is it the love? Is it the alignment? Is it the kindness and the peace?
There are all the tools that we use to align ourselves with along the line. So like the kindness, the love, it's all things that we can also kind of like align ourselves with, because when we go, I'm just going to do that now, like, does it come from love? Is it serving me? And is it kind? Because if it isn't, it's not the right thing for me, nor will it be for anyone else around me. So those are more like the parameters, like the GPS kind of thing. So this is the fuel I use for the journey. My journey is how much can I learn to be in the best space for my soul journey on this earth, to also leave a good footprint, but at the same time with those as my fuel.
Yes.
But still having an inside-out life, not an outside-in life. And what I mean was that is, as you know, I do this like midsummer. Yes, I'm coming from a Roman Catholic thing, but there's also a bit of Hinduism in it, a bit of Buddhism. Whatever fits at the moment and sits right, I claim the right to have it. And if I've outgrown it, I have something else. If it still fits, I keep it. So it's a mix and match, because growth is the only inevitable. So you might just as well tailor make it. And there is this beautiful thing in Sanskrit. It's soham. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No.
And it's I am that. And that is the concept of the universe is in me as much as I'm in the universe. So there's this absolute interconnectedness. So I'm as divine as the divine is. Heike is in the divine and the divine is in Heike, and vice versa. So there is no judgment. So there is like, I'm not less than anyone else, just like everybody else is not less than me. There is no need for judging or better or worse or having to be right or having to be wrong. It is all valid.
Yes.
And it just gives such freedom, because it's like you agreeing with me or not is totally valid.
Yeah.
None of it is invalid either. It just is.
Neither here nor there.
So I'm not less than you, I'm not more than you. We just both are, full stop. And it's just such a relief of it. So when people come up like, I don't believe in what you do. Okay. What do you believe in? Let's explore that, because I'm curious. I don't have to catch that ball. It ain't my ball, but it's an interesting ball.
Yes.
So it's like, so that come from kindness and curiosity.
Sure. It's beautiful. And spirituality has become one of the topics, or maybe even religion, if we go that route, has become one of those topics that we've been told don't even get discussed at the dinner table.
Christmas coming, and no politics, no religion.
Yeah, no politics, no religions. Then we'll maybe even money. Sometimes we don't talk about money either.
Yeah.
So I think when that approach that you've just spoken about is taken, there's so much freedom and peace behind that approach, that even some of the biggest stresses of life just fall right away.
Exactly, because so many people avoid each other because of that. So it's like, I have so many people that are stressing now with Christmas coming up.
Yeah.
And then it's a family coming together, and then they're asking me when last I've been in church, and they're asking me why I'm not pregnant yet, and they are asking me like, so there's like all this kind of pressure kind of thing, and it's like, and I'd rather not go. Or I build up anxiety before I go. And it's like, it becomes literally unhealthy. And it's like, just let each other be and love each other for being there, irrespective of their belief system. A belief is just something we decided is true with the absence of fact. There's not even fact in it. I just bought into it. Why can't I buy into my worthiness irrespective of other people's belief? And I think that's so important, because it's like we are being taught from young in most backgrounds that the outside, the around us, needs to somehow affirm my worthiness. It needs approval from the family, from the community, from the church. They determine what I do is good enough, is acceptable, it's not acceptable.
Yeah.
So I will forever look on the outside if I'm good enough and what I'm doing is good enough, and if I'm worthy enough, or if I'm doing something right, or if I'm doing something wrong. So my anchoring point will always be outside of me. Yet I want to be at peace and balance, but my anchoring point is outside of me.
Always, yeah.
There can still be beautiful guides and indicators within that, but the anchoring point got to be here.
Yes.
And again, with love and kindness. And if I do it via Catholic sides, if I do it via Islam, it doesn't matter. Whatever helps me on the journey to hold on to and be there, it's valid, as long as it comes from love.
Beautiful. And I love that you shared that it's okay at any given moment to allow that to evolve. So what you might have chosen today, maybe next year, the version of you next year just feels more aligned to something else, and that's okay, because you're always learning, changing, and growing, and unlearning and relearning that entire time. So where I want to close off our conversation, as we wrap up now, is what people can expect. So I'm imagining after the session, we're going to have so many people that want to speak to you, or want to speak to someone else who does work similar to you. even if it's not necessarily for a mediumship session, but for a session that helps them to realign, to help them understand what the possibilities are for them and where they can start and those types of things. So I want you just to give us a quick idea of what your session might look like. How do you support people? What are the different ways that people can get support from someone like yourself?
I do different things, and the one is the tarot reading, which is literally linking into your energy and saying, okay, this is where you are. I like empowering people. I don't like people coming too often to me because I don't want to be a crutch, because I want, like, there's your tools, this is what it is, this is what you had all along. It's like a rerouting to what you are and getting away from what you think you're not, which is normally the louder voice. And it's going, and it's giving you insight. This is where you are. This is where your pattern is in your way. This is where your thinking is actually not really meeting your worthiness. So this is like having like the roadmap of who you are and how you got in there and how we corner ourselves. Because nothing can really happen in our life unless we somewhere along the way volunteer it, knowingly or unknowingly, and giving ourselves permission to step into that. So there's a lot of guidance on that as well. And then the crossing over is, of course, with connecting with past loved ones, with our guides, and there's lots of beautiful stuff coming through, especially when there was also when there was sudden death or it's like, and grief is an immense energy to hold, and very often gets us stuck on top of it all. So it's about clarity and putting the power back into your hands, and kind of like putting like a spotlight on your roadmap and say, but it's there. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. There's no table movings or smoke coming up or anybody hovering over the table. It's very much a connection from soul to soul and saying, but that's where you are. That is truly what it is.
I love the idea of empowering others, because it takes us right back to where we started, that you have everything you need already.
Absolutely.
To make that connection with whatever this entity looks like for you in your life right now, because it might be different in the future. So just taking advantage of that, going from that place of knowing that you are well equipped, and then also just feeling the beautiful power in the fact that you do have access to that. Because often, like you said, you see someone, and I'll never forget the reading you and I had. And I actually shared my book with our retreat attendees, the green one. And I sat in a session across from Heike, and she said to me, your grandmother is holding up a green book. And I remember going, a green book? I'm not getting it. I don't know what the green book is. She says she loves the book, and she congratulates you. And I went, okay, it's not coming up. And she advised, okay, it might not come up now, but just write it down, green book. This might come back later on. And then I went, whoa. I actually just wrote a book with a green cover that talks all about this beautiful individual that falls in a relationship with someone with green eyes. It's literally like the cover is green. Everyone who's in the room has seen it because I gifted it to all of them. But I think when that happened, it was so beautiful. And a big part of what you do is validation. Validation that, because human beings are always looking for meaning, but I find that spirituality is where the meaning is loaded. And so when we can find that, and we know that people like you who have been able to make that so obvious, reaffirm it for us, that it's something we have access to, and that there's so much more than these bodies and everything we experience.
There is worlds beyond that. There is worlds beyond that, and we do have access to it. We absolutely do.
So beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We honor you so much for what you do and what you hold, because I know that this is tough work. So thank you very much for just being who you are and answering the call.
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a beautiful gift for you that we will give to you after the podcast, that's made up of a collection of things that our partners, like your Nescafe, like your Nivea, we've got Numa Aesthetics that's also given us some goodies, and Virgin Active that you will get access to, just to say a huge thanks for being a part of this.
Yay, thank you.
Yay. Everyone likes goodies, right?
Everyone likes goodies.
All right, guys, so that's how we wrap up our conversation on the UnLearners podcast today, and the topic has been relearning spirituality. Such a phenomenal conversation. I strongly advise that you give yourself a bit of time to digest the conversation and then come back and re-watch it and then watch it again. Maybe even like every month, just watch this conversation again as you do a bit of an audit around what you are feeling, what are you aligned to. Is it time to do a spirituality audit if that's one of the things that you feel is aligned with you? And then also, In the show notes below this video, you will also get Heike's details, so you can connect with her if you feel like this is something that you need. You need to connect with her and see how she can support you. But that's pretty much it. That's all we've got for you. And as mentioned earlier on, this podcast episode was shot at the UnLearning Experience, our annual retreat. So if you are not signed up to join us during the year when you watch this, make sure you do so on theunlearners.com. That's it for now, UnLearners. It's been myself, Zanele Njapha, the UnLearning Lady, saying goodbye, and we'll see you on the next episode.
The UnLearners. Learn, change, grow. Learn, change, grow. The UnLearners. The UnLearners. The UnLearners. Learn, change, grow.